Hey guys, so we've looked at this worksheet before, but we're going to look at it again because it's super important. So I'm going to do some more examples of factoring trinomials if the leading coefficient is not 1. Again, that leading coefficient is the coefficient in front of the squared term. So I've done these two in previous videos, so I'm going to move on from that. In the previous video, I did two different styles or methods, you could say, for factoring. I'm going to do those two styles again, those two methods. In this video, I'm going to look at AC with grouping again. I'm going to do two examples of that. And then in the next video, I'm going to do two examples of slide and divide. So these are just resources to help you get more familiar with these processes. Again, pick one that you like and stick with it. You don't need to be good at both. I'm just giving you options because factoring is super important. It's a little bit tricky, which is why there are so many different methods for doing it. So pick one that works for you and stick with it. So this is going to be AC with grouping. So we're looking at number 6 here. So with AC with grouping or with any factoring, we're going to be multiplying to something and adding to something else. And we have to figure out what those things are. So when I have a number out here, I'm going to multiply to A times C. That's why it's called AC. And we're going to add to B. So the coefficients are A, B, C. So AC is the first coefficient times the last coefficient. First coefficient times last coefficient. So in this case, 7 times 12 is what's going there. So 7 times 12 is 84. So we're looking for something that multiplies to 84 and adds to 44. That's our B here, right? 44. So everything is positive. So both of our factors that we're looking for are going to be positive. So two things that multiply to 84. So we can just run through the list of things that multiply to 84. That would be 1 and 84, which clearly doesn't add to 44. So that's not it. 84. So 2 and 42. Oh, look at that. 2 and 42 add to 44. So 2 and 42 are the factors that we are looking for. So then remember with grouping, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this, but we're going to split the middle term into these two factors. So let's look at that. So I have 7x squared plus 2x plus 42x plus 12. So I've split my 44x up into 2x and 42x, right? If I combined like terms here, I would be back to here. But I'm splitting them up so that I can factor them. So I'm going to use factor by grouping. So I'm going to factor out a greatest common factor from these two, and I'm going to factor out a greatest common factor from these two. That's always going to be my strategy here. So what does 7x squared and 2x have in common? Well, 7 and 2 don't have anything in common, but we have an x in each one of these, so we can factor out an x. And then we're going to have 7x plus 2. Right? If I factor out an x, I'm basically dividing by x. So x squared divided by x is just x. The 7 comes along for the ride. 2x divided by x is just 2. So I have 7x plus 2 plus, now I'm going to factor the greatest common factor out of these. So what do 42 and 12 have in common? Well, 42 is 7 times 6. 6 is also a factor of 12, so we can factor out a 6 on both of these. So we can factor out a 6. So again, like I said, 7 times 6 is 42. So if I divide this by 6, I'm going to get 7x. And if I divide this by 6, I'm going to get 2. And notice that these two parentheses are the same. 7x plus 2, 7x plus 2. If they're different, we've done something wrong and we can't continue. So they have to be the same for this to work. They have to be the same. So then you're going to factor out this whole parenthesis. So we're going to get 7x plus 2 times x plus 6. So we had the x being multiplied by this, that goes there. We have the 6 being multiplied by the same thing, so that goes there, and that's why this works, because these were both being multiplied by this to begin with. So we can write it like this. So this is my factored form. This is what I'm looking for. This is my factored form of this polynomial. And notice that if I multiply 7x times x, I get 7x squared. And if I multiply 2 times 6, I get 12. That's a good way to check that you're on the right track if you get to this point and that still works. Of course, you could FOIL this out all the way and see if you get the middle term correct too, but you don't need to do that because we're not, I mean, it's good to kind of check your answers, but I'm not expecting you to do double the work. So this is going to be our answer to number 6. All right, so going on from that, let's do number 8. So I'm going to go ahead and erase. So again, we're looking for something that multiplies to 3 times 48, right? The first times the last, 3 times 48, and adds to negative 26. Negative 26. So 3 times 48 is 144. So we're looking for something that multiplies to positive 144 and adds to negative 26. So remember, if we're looking for a negative number, if we're adding to a negative number, but we're multiplying to a positive number, then both of our factors have to be negative because a negative times a negative is a positive, right? So we're looking for 2 negative numbers. So let's just start listing factors. So we have -1 and -144. Obviously, if I added those together, that would be way too big. So that's not it. We have -2 times -72 would be 144. That's still too big. We have -3 and -48. Still too big. -4 and 36. Sorry, -36. We're getting closer, but it's still too big, right? That's still bigger than 26 if I add them together, or smaller, right? Because it's negative. Larger negative number. -6 and -24. That's getting really close, right? If I add those together, I get -30, which is close to -26, but not quite there yet. So let's keep going. 144 is not divisible by 7, but it is divisible by 8. So it'd be -8, -18. Ah, there we go. -8 plus -18 is -26. So these are the factors that we're looking for. So now we're going to do the same process that we did before. We're going to take these factors and we're going to use them to split up our middle term. So we have 3x squared minus 18x minus 8x plus 48. Okay, so we've split up our -26 into -18 and negative 8. And now we're going to factor by grouping. So we're going to factor the first two terms. What do the first two terms have in common? Well, they're both divisible by 3, right? 18 divided by 3 is 6. So they're both divisible by 3. So we have 3. And they're also both divisible by x, right? They both have an x in them. So we're taking out a 3x. So 3x squared divided by 3x. Well, 3 divided by 3 is just 1. And x squared divided by x is just x. Negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. And x divided by x is 1. That just cancels out. So that's good. And then we can look at these. So if this term is negative, then I'm going to factor out the negative every time. If my third term here is negative, I'm going to factor out the negative. So I'm going to factor out a negative something. Negative something. So I'm looking for something that 8 and 48 have in common, right? Something that I can divide both of those things by. Well, it turns out 48 is divisible by 8, right? 48 divided by 8 is 6. So I can factor out an 8. I'm going to factor out an 8. So what do I have left? Well, negative 8 divided by negative 8 is just 1. So all I have left there is x. And then 48 divided by negative 8 is negative 6. Don't forget those negatives. And now notice that once again, these two parentheses match, which means we can factor out that parenthesis. So I have x minus 6, 3x minus 8. And that would be my answer for number 8. Hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you in the next video when we talk about divide and slide.